Hey, what's up everyone? We are back with another build. This is a continuation, kind of like looking at the Greatsword builds. I was having a lot of fun in my Assassin build, which was the Great Axe Greatsword build. And this is kind of another iteration of that, kind of swapping out the Great Axe for the Spear, kind of changing a little bit of the play style into making a build that has a similar role, but different mechanics of doing so. I've actually been enjoying this one a bit more than the Great Axe build, just because I think the Spear brings a bit more, mainly due to attribute scaling and not just kind of the Great Axe before, because we weren't having 300 strength. It wasn't really doing too much beyond just grab wells and reaps and charges. So having the Spear actually contribute to the fight has been really interesting. It's kind of changed the playstyle of the build. So I'm a big fan of it. And yeah, we're going to hop in, talk about it. We're going to cover the basics of the build, what it's good at, what it's bad at, attributes, what gear you need, the trees, and all that stuff. So if you're interested in another backline, schizo, having fun build, wreak havoc in arenas and OPRs and maybe wars, this is the build for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. And as a reminder, before we get into the build, if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. And be sure to follow me at twitch.tv/redloft, where I live stream New World all the time, where I work on these builds in real time. If you're interested in checking them out, playing with me, watching the content, we really appreciate the support there as well. So yeah, check that out if you are interested. So going into the basics of the build, let's start off with, what is this build good at? Now this is another build that is good at locking down enemies for burst damage. You're going to go backline diving with this build. You're going to roll in. You're going to sweep individuals. You're going to javelin them. You're going to get sundering javelin. You're going to get bleeding sweep. And that's going to kind of burst them and weaken them so that you can then kill them with your greatsword. So this is really good at getting in and using the hard CC of the spear to not only deal damage and burst enemies down, but also set them up so that you can just easily land your greatsword abilities. Now, before I did this build with the Great Axe, as I mentioned, I like to use it because the chase potential was really good. This is the sacrifice you're taking. You're taking a bit more damage and a bit more burst, a bit more hard lock CC, and you're sacrificing the chase that the Great Axe had with Reap and Charge and the Grab Well. So this is something to take note of. You gotta be a bit better at timing your combos with this build to really make this work compared to the Great Axe build that we were using before. And because of that, what is this bad at? This is bad at clump fighting. Again, you gotta be tactical. You don't have easy escapes like in the Bruiser build. You can shockwave, dodge out, whirlwind or charge out of fight. Same with the old Assassin build. You could charge out if you needed to. This one, you have relentless rush, and that's really it to get out of clumps. And so it's hard. And you're rocking low con on this build, and because of that, you're very squishy, light armor, low con. So you don't really want to be in clumps. You're gonna get killed very fast if you get CC chained, because there's no easy escape. So with that in mind, how to position, again, you're going to be taking long flanks around. You're going to be looking at targeting, healers and dexes and everything. That's what this build is meant for. Finding someone who is medium armor or heavy armor with 200 plus con is not ideal for this build. You don't want to position into this clumps. You don't want to position into that you can. This is a pretty good dueling build because of the spear. So you can fight those guys one-on-one, but again, you don't want to go to the clumps. You want to be backline diving. You want to be targeting the squishies there, and you're going to be assassinating them in the backline. So before we get into the attributes, I want to show you guys what the combos for this build. They're a very basic combo you can do, and there's a lot. It really just depends on cooldowns and what's happening and what you want to try and do. But your very bread and butter combos, you'll start with the spear. You'll roll in, do this, and then you'll hit the javelin on them. What that's going to do is it'll knock them back after you hit that, and they're going to be sundered. You can go in. At this point, you can go for the 3 stabs, or at that point when they are javelin down is when you can swap to your greatsword and go for here into the spin, and then follow up with the combo and damage. That's your bread and butter combo. That's roughly what you're looking to do. Is you're looking to get the sweep into a javelin, and then either continue with the spear or using your greatsword. It really depends on what's happening in the fight. If they are solo and like stamped out, then I'll use like the spear combo just to get the damage, because the greatsword will allow me to chase them easily once they get their stamina up. If there's like other players around, I'll usually swap the greatsword so I can get like a larger root and like hit my relentless rush on more people. It really depends. The other option of what you can do, another kind of fun combo, is you can go in for the sweep, and when they're knocked down, this is where you go here. At this point, they're going to roll. You can relentless rush them for the root and then into the javelin. The reason why you do that is players with high freedom, after you hit the sweep, they can oftentimes escape right before you hit the javelin, or they'll get like a recovery where the javelin won't knock them down. So if you're noticing that's happening a lot, then you don't want to go the sweep into the javelin. Instead, doing this allows you to guarantee these and hit this into the javelin throw. The downside to that combo is that you want to do the javelin typically before you go into the greatsword to get the rend down from the summoning javelin. And so doing that combo makes you not get the rend, which like decreases your burst on the greatsword, but is an option if you feel like you're just not hitting the javelin and the javelin's not doing anything. But it's also okay if the javelin doesn't knock them down. That's just a benefit. End of the day, you're just looking to be able to get a guaranteed javelin throw, so you can go into your combo and burst them down and all of that stuff. And then yeah, lastly with the last two abilities, the other fun combo, if they're still alive, is you can do the steadfast strike to pull them back and then swap to the perforate to stagger them and hit them a few times until your cooldowns are up. So yeah, your other cooldowns are up. You can go into this, pull them back into the 3 stab, and at this point, hopefully you have other abilities up to continue the fight. And yeah, those are your basic combos. Alright, going into attributes now, what we were rocking is going to be roughly 150 strength, 200 dexterity, and then it's going to be around 165 con. Now at the moment, if I took 6 strength away and added back to con, I'd be at that 150, 200, 165. That's the lineup that I use with this build for OPRs and arenas. I just use this because I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of health and not get the 200 con for a bit more damage. Getting up to 200 dexterity is good because it adds a bit more damage for my spear, since my spear scales primarily with dexterity. So that adds a bit more damage for there. I also get the bonus to backstab, which is really nice as you are jumping people from the flank. And you also get the dodge decrease by 10 stamina. And then we get up to 150 strength, primarily because the greatsword, for those who don't know, it scales equal with strength and dexterity, so you want to keep it somewhere equal. Like I wouldn't want to go 300 dexterity with this build. I'd want to get good strength, otherwise I'll be losing greatsword damage. And getting up to 150 allows us for the 25% standard damage for chasing when we get the light attacks into the combos that we have. And also just adds the 5% to the slashing and strike, which is beneficial, obviously, for both, and the 2% damage to melee physical basic attacks, which is obviously beneficial for us with how much you auto with the greatsword. So getting this is the best way to kind of maximize the damage with this build. And then I walked around, like I said, 165. I have food pop just so you could see how it actually looks. Getting at least 150 just because minus 10% to critical damage taken. That's nice. It's basically like adding onto your resilience, and then just gives you enough con to survive. If you really wanted to push this build to the extreme, you could go 100 con and get up to, that'd be like 115 con, and get up to 200 strength if you want to do 200, 200, 100. That's going to be very squishy because you are in light armor, so I wouldn't recommend it. But the other option is for a more serious build, is if you're looking to do wars with this build, if you want to try to go wars, if you're feeling confident, you can stick with this lineup. If not, honestly, almost every war build, I would recommend having 200 con. So you would sacrifice the 200 dexterity and just go down to 150 and 150, and you get up to 200 con, just to get the increase to physical elemental armor. It's going to just give you survivability between the extra health, and having those increases is going to help with being light armor in this build. So if you're going to go war, I would do that. Otherwise, this is kind of the attributes you can rock for like OPRs and arenas, and it's very fun this way. Getting into gear, we have a few options here that we can kind of look at, but I'll show you what I'm running and what the thought is. Obviously, the priorities you're going to want is you are going to want 5 resilience, and then in terms of weapon perks, what you're going to want is relentless freedom. So I have that on my chest piece right now. Just removes roots and slows, and increases relentless versus critical hit chance by 12%. So a stronger chance to crit, so a little bit more damage guarantee, and just removes a bit more CC, a soft CC reducer. And you also want bleeding sweep. This applies a bleed for 9.6% of weapon damage for 8 seconds. This pairs with some perks we get on the spear later on, but also just adds more damage. And a bleed is always nice with the spear, just adding more onto that. You bleed a lot with this build between the spear and the greatsword, so there's no reason not to enable that. This just adds more damage for you. And on that, you'll also want to get Sundering Javelin, as you can see on this one. This is a big part of why this build works, is because when you hit your javelin, you inflict rend, which reduces the target's damage absorption by 25% for 10 seconds. So when you hit the javelin, it rends them, and then you can go into your combo with the greatsword and really burst them down. But beyond that, like I said, 5 resilience. And then you also will want to try and get shrinking fortification or elemental aversion. It's really up to you. Shrinking fortification works nice in light armor to dodge a lot, so you can get that up. However, it is also a non-guarantee on the fortify. Like, you're not guaranteed to have it proc. You have to do something to enable it. So if you're not comfortable with that, you could also go like elemental aversion, just because you will be fighting a lot of like mages and that type of stuff, or physical aversion against the bows and muskets, to just have that guaranteed reduction. But either way, this is what I'm rocking right now. I have refreshing evasion, resilient bleeding sweep. If I could, I'd probably swap the refreshing evasion to freedom. I think freedom is really huge for light builds, so getting freedom is going to be a big one. But this is what I'm rocking right now with that, or I could get shirking fortification or whatever. And then again, resilient, relentless freedom. This is by far also not a finished build what I have, but the amount of money it costs to finish these builds is extreme and get 3 perk bis, so we work with what we can get. And then here I just have a resilient shrinking fortification piece. And then my pants, regular pants, best in slot, easily refreshing, resilient, shirking fortification. Obviously, if you wanted to drop refreshing for freedom and get different, that's fine. But these are pants that work with every build, so there's no reason not to get them if you need them. And then my boots, I have freedom, elemental aversion, resilient. Again, if you can't get the shirking fortification, you can rock elemental aversion. So I only have 2 shirking fortifications, and then the elemental aversion, which roughly makes up 3 shirking fortifications for the defensive. If you do want to, you can drop the bleeding sweep and stuff like that. Like, I have a shirking fortification head that I was using otherwise, so you could drop that if I needed a little bit more defense, but I think you're fine otherwise. Just get good. I don't know what to tell you. Just get good, stuff. But yeah, and in terms of jewelry, right now I have a slash protection health. I think slash protection is just huge right now in this game, between great sword and great axe builds and all that stuff. You just end up finding a lot of slash protection. You can also take strike protection or thrust protection just to be able to deal with that. But there is now in the Starstone Amrite mutation, there is a amulet that has slash protection, health, and divine. I would recommend getting that. I don't have it yet, but you can get that, and that just allows you, especially if you have a pocket healer, to have a lot more survivability with getting a lot more heals and everything. So that would probably be the third perk you want. If not, you want to get stamina recovery. Either way, this is roughly what you're looking at. I use Champion's Ring still. I think Invigorated Punishment is needed for these builds because a lot of the guys you are jumping are going to have buffs on them, especially when you try and fight healers. And so Invigorated Punishment I think is really huge. Hardy, I like Hardy a lot. Even though I rock the 150 dex, I still like Hardy just because it gives me more options in terms of being able to use the stamina for the greatsword swings. So I still recommend 150 dex to have Hardy with greatsword builds. And then Keen Awareness is already solid, just to have the critical chance on the ring. I think allows you not to have to worry about having Keen on your weapon, and so that freedom gives you more damage. And then for my earring, I have this one, refreshing toes, purifying toes. I think these are the 3 perk bits for a lot of earring builds. I think Doom's Chance is another one you can get that's solid. Or there's the one that drops from the wolf boss in Malevolence that gives the exact same 3 perks, except it's dexterity instead of con strength like I have here. So you could get that as well. And then, like I said before, for my spear, I'm rocking Thundering Javelin, and whatever else you can get with it is good. I got Vicious and Keen Speed, just because my crit Keen Speed allows me to, helps with the lack of chase compared to the Great Axe, and Vicious for extra crit damage is always nice. But the big one is the Thundering Javelin. And then on my Greatsword, I'm rocking Transient Strikes and Abyssal Attunement. I think these are your 2 perks guarantees that you want for any high damage Greatsword build. It hits hard. It just hits so hard just having this. And then, as you see, I add elemental gems. I have an Electrified Gambit here and an Abyssal Gambit here. One thing I learned that you guys should know is you want to make sure the elemental gems you have, like your Rune Glass gems cases, are different. Because right now, it inflicts surge, dealing 8% lightning damage per second for 2 seconds, and void damage for 2 seconds. If you have the same element, it doesn't stack. If you have different elements, the damage stacks. So if I hit them with this, and they had the lightning damage going, and 1 second happens, I hit them with this, and now the void damage, it goes at the same time. It doesn't stop the damage from happening from the elements. So we have 2 different damage types for these. And then lastly, with this, the Greatsword I have tried so hard. You want to get Twisted Strikes, Abyssal Attunement, and then for the 3rd perk, either Refreshing Move, Keenly Jagged I think is best for the bleed, but Refreshing Move, Keenly Jagged, Keen Speed, any of those you want to get as a 3rd perk for your Greatsword with this build. And also, right now I'm just rocking Punishing Gems, by the way. That's all I'm rocking, just for consistent. You can test like the void stuff and all that if you want to use, but I don't have Grav Well, so it's not needed. But I just use Punishing for these. And yeah, so that's the setup there. And then for Heart Rune, I have been using Brutal Heart Rune of Grasping Vines. I don't recommend Detonate with this build unless you go up to 200 cons, because if you rock the Detonate and do the good one, and you're 150 con, like you get 1 tap by anything. So I like Vines. It helps me lock people down. I can Vines them into the combo. The other one that I don't have upgraded, but I want to try, would be Stone Form. Just allow you a bit more escape and just ability to kind of control the fight a bit more. I think Stone Form is highly not respected right now, when it's probably the best Heart Rune in the game. So that's the case. But either way, that is the gear that I rock. Going into the skill trees, we're not going to cover every single little selection here. I'm just going to cover the big ones. But again, we're going to be rocking Perforate, and we're getting all 3 in here for the red increase above, and then the staggered part. We also have Javelin, of course. We're going to get the knockdown. That's a huge part of the Javelin. Headshots, if you can hit them, hell yeah. And then, but we take that so we can get the bonus damage from meter traveled. This isn't like the most amazing thing, because a lot of times you're hitting the Javelin after you hit a sweep. But if you're sniping, this is helpful and just gives a bit more damage. And then with the sweep, we are going to take the Grid is now active during attack. Helps with just kind of dueling. I don't bother with the coup de grace, just because, like, if you like it, you can, but I just feel after the sweep, you usually want to immediately Javelin, and if you do this, you might not get the timing right for the Javelin, so I don't rock it. And the other big perks you want to take, because we are running Bleeding Sweep, we take Exposed Wounds, which is critical chances increased by 15% when attacking a bleeding target. And then also Exacerbating Crits, which is extends the duration of your spear debuffs by 20%. So those are the big ones. Everything else you can kind of take depending on how your playstyle is. But this is the skill tree for the spear that I am rocking. And then for the Greatsword, it's a very similar, if not I think the exact same tree as the other assassin build for the Greatsword. This is the best I can do with maximizing damage output with everything. We're rocking Relentless Rush. We take that with the Empowered, and then we take the Adaptive Rush so we can have the root or the heal. I don't bother with Relentless Freedom because reducing the ability cooldown by 50% for a kill, it doesn't happen enough consistently. Like, you're not using this ability typically to execute, so it's not the best. Obviously, we take Skyward Slash, the best ability with the Greatsword by far. Take both perks, so we can do the stagger, apply the rend. Again, if you're already in Onslaught, no, it's nice. And then the follow-up attack for the extra damage, and like the follow-up of like flying in the air to chase people, which somehow works. And then the Sickening Slash for the disease, so you get these debuffs on them. And of course, the Steadfast Strike we take to be able to be going into Defiant Stance when we need, and then also for the stagger and pull and all that stuff. Beyond that, we want to make sure you have a Flinching Blade. Makes it so charged heavy attacks have grit, and we inflict the bleeding. That's really huge. It allows us, when we go into Onslaught and we're slamming down charged heavy attacks, we have grit during it, and we stack bleeds on them. And then the charged heavy attacks have 15 armor penetration. We're just working on that for the charged heavy attacks with all that and all these skills. And we go into the Unrelenting Onslaught, so that our cooldowns are reduced by 10% for every charged heavy attack, which, if you guys don't remember the combo, I guess I'll cover it real fast. When you're on Onslaught stance, you do 1, 2 heavy attacks, and then a light attack. If you're in Defiance or no stance, you do 1 charge heavy and then 2 light attacks. So it's either 2 heavies, 1 light, or it's 1 heavy, 2 light, depending on what stance you're in. But yeah, that's the skill tree, and yeah, that should be the build. And that's the build. Hope you guys check it out and like it. And again, if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. And check me out, twitch.tv/redloff. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.